Okay, the recording is started. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, for hopefully everybody was able to, if you haven't already, I'm going to put it in the chat one more time. I put it about 5 times in there, but the Nearpod link, so everybody can jump on that as we are going over the class today. Hello, welcome. Thank you all for joining. Okay, so just so everybody is aware, this session will be recorded for learning purposes and will be stored. Make sure that that you follow expectations, follow along with the Nearpod lesson, use the chat tools respectfully and appropriately, and then respond to questions and instructions the first time. Okay, so what we're going to dive into today is the Bill of Rights. And so this is something where you may want to go and look at the Bill of Rights and maybe read through some of the stuff when you're taking your exit ticket at the very end. But let's kind of jump into the course so you can kind of see where we should be at right now. Okay, so the front of the course here, as you can see, I always post my recordings at the front page so you can have access to those. Monthly, as you see what's going on, we have live classes every Thursday, but next week is a well-deserved spring break. So I hope everybody is going to just take some time off, relax a little bit, and kind of go from there, because the exit ticket is not going to be due till Wednesday of the week after spring break. So just be aware that you have a little bit of time to do this one, but at least just stay on track of everything. We go into the units here today. I got a couple things. Some people were asking for more material. So I got a website to the Bill of Rights, which if you click on it, you're going to go right here. And it has like the actual amendments that you can read, and you can kind of see where the questions would fall into. Okay. As for the quiz, it's going to be a 10-question quiz, mostly talking about the different amendments. Okay, so we're going to go over the amendments that you'll need to know for the for your questions and stuff, but you may also want to use this as a guide as you're going through those. Okay, so as we're moving on here, what our objective is today is, given a quiz in the OLS, students will accurately answer multiple choice questions about the Bill of Rights with 80% accuracy across one trial. So what is the Bill of Rights? Okay, we all have rights as citizens of the United States of America, but what are they and where do they come from? This unit will focus on the rights of the Americans, including the right to free speech, free press, and privacy. You'll also learn about the history and the practical application of these rights. Okay, so let's watch a quick video that maybe describes a little bit here.
The first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, also known as the Bill of Rights, were ratified or passed over 200 years ago. But even though they're a bit, well, old, these first 10 amendments are still the most debated and discussed section of our Constitution today. So can you remember what they are? Let's take a look. The First Amendment is the freedom of speech, press, religion, assembly, and petition. This may be the most revered of the amendments. The First Amendment protects our rights to say and write our opinions, worship how we please, assemble together peacefully, and petition our government if we feel the need. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. The original intent of the Second Amendment was to protect colonists from the invading British soldiers, but it now guarantees that you have the right to own a gun to defend yourself and your property. The Third Amendment is called the Quartering Amendment. It was written in response to the British occupation and as a result of the colonists having to house or quarter soldiers in their homes during the American Revolution. Because of this amendment, our government can never force us to house soldiers in our home. The Fourth Amendment is the right to search and seizure. The police can't come into our home without a search warrant and take our personal property. Today, many concerns have arisen about our rights to privacy and technology. For example, can the government track your location with your smartphone, or can social media postings such as on Facebook and Twitter be used without a warrant? On to the fifth. It's all about due process. You've probably heard the phrase, "I plead the fifth," in movies or on TV. They're talking about the Fifth Amendment, which says that you don't have to take the witness stand against yourself if you may end up incriminating yourself. Okay, we're halfway done. The Sixth and Seventh Amendments are about how the legal system works. If you're accused of a crime, you have the right to a speedy public trial and an impartial jury. You also have the right to a lawyer and the right to take the stand if you choose. This is important because it will prevent the accused from sitting in prison forever and insist that the prosecution proceed with undue delay. The seventh says you have the right to a jury trial where 12 impartial peers decide your innocence or guilt in the courtroom as opposed to a judge doing it all alone. The Eighth Amendment prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. Is a death penalty cruel? Is it unusual? It's hard for Americans to agree on the definitions of cruel and unusual. The Ninth and 10th Amendments are called the non-rights amendments. They say that the rights not listed in the Bill of Rights are retained by the people in the states. You have other rights that are not listed in the Constitution, and the states have the right to make their own policies, like instituting state taxes. So, now you know all 10 amendments. Can you remember them all? If not, remember this. The Bill of Rights are a crucial piece of American history, and though society has undergone many changes these past 200 and some years, the interpretation and application of these amendments are as vital today as they were when they were written.
All right, so that gave us a really good overview of all of the 10 amendments that you'll need to know for the class and your exit ticket / quiz today. So let's run through a scenario real quick, right? And we have our little Instagram post thing here. So this is where these Bill of Rights come into play. You may be wondering, like, why does this even matter? All that kind of stuff. But let's see what you guys think about this. So I'm going to read it. Justin, a high school sophomore, believes strongly in the freedom to express himself both at school and in other areas of his life. In order to spread his beliefs with others at his school, he created a small publication, which he printed on his own computer and posted on his own website and passed around to students at his high school. He also kept several copies in both his backpack and his school locker. The officials at the school, principal, superintendent, school board, felt Justin's publication was distracting students during the school day. They searched Justin's locker and backpack and seized the publications. The principal suspended Justin for 3 days and threatened expulsion if he continued to pass the publication out to people at his school. They said he was interfering with the school's order. Justin, along with friends, family, and most of his teachers, felt differently. Justin made the decision to make. He could continue to operate his publication and website, keeping the hard copies out of school, or he could protest, stating that his constitutional rights had been violated under the First Amendment. Okay. Interesting scenario. So I want to know on here, what should Justin do and why? What are your thoughts? This may take a second to think about and write down. But what would your thoughts be of what Justin should do? Okay, so somebody says protest because he has the right of speech. Yeah. Okay. So that's something he could do. Okay, think he should protest. And he has the right to protest too, according to the First Amendment. And it was interesting. They said it was distracting. I'm wondering what was distracting, right? What was the evidence that they had that said it was distracting? I think it would depend on what he was spreading awareness about. Okay, very good, right? Because there's certain things in there that are found, as we kind of talked about case law a little bit. There's certain things that are actually not appropriate to be able to do in school, right? So that could depend on something. Still do it because he has the right of speech. Yep. Good. And the right of the press, right? Free press. Justin should continue to run his website, but he should keep his hard copies out of school. Schools must have the ability to control what comes in and out of the school for safety reasons. Okay, interesting. Okay, so we have somebody that's saying maybe not protest, just keep it out of school. And it's hard to keep things out of school because with digital devices such as phones and other means, things come into the school all the time, right? Somebody said, stop bringing his publications to school because it would just be easier. I'm sure the school wasn't trying to take away his First Amendment. Okay. So because something's distracting, that means, doesn't mean that we should do it. Does he have the right to pass around things, right? To share his point of view. Okay. He should protest his rights to express his opinion is valid. Although if certain things he is bringing into the school are deemed inappropriate, then he is under obligation to oblige that rule. Okay. Right. And then there's the thing is about law, it's hard because there's always gray area. It's like, well, what is inappropriate and what is not, right? For some people, inappropriate looks like this. Some people, inappropriate looks like that. There's always, I feel, gray area when it comes into it. But you're under the point, the aspect, right, of is it, what is right and what is wrong, okay? And that's what's so hard to kind of do. And that's why we have the Constitution, right? That we can get judged by peers if it gets to a point specific point, or judges make rulings and stuff like that that we can kind of go off of. So interesting concept. Thanks for your discussion. Appreciate it. Okay, so what is the Bill of Rights? Do you know one piece of paper written over 200 years ago had the powerful effect on our lives every day? The U.S. Bill of Rights grants certain privileges to all the United States citizens, but who qualifies as a citizen. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution defines who is a U.S. citizen. You are a citizen of the U.S. if you are. So that's something that's a good point, is the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to you if you are not a U.S. citizen. You just U.S. citizen. If you're a U.S. citizen, you were either the following. You were born in the United States or the U.S. territory, were born under another country to parents who are U.S. citizens, or you moved to the United States and have gone through the process of naturalization, which includes taking an exam in English and U.S. citizenship. Okay, the Bill of Rights and criminal law. Okay, so let's go over and highlight some of the big amendments, okay? This is the Fifth Amendment that you'll need to know. And I just wanted to review just real quick a couple others. So the First Amendment, remember, is the freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of speech. So we kind of think about things like, for example, being able to use social media and say kind of what you like on there. That's a First Amendment kind of issue, right? I'm not saying like it's right or wrong, whatever post or whatever, but that is an issue there. The Second Amendment is another big one that they kind of look at. That's the right to bear arms, right? So be able to carry a gun. Now that's interpreted in different ways. Like, well, what kind of guns can I have? How can I carry them? So all that is kind of has to be determined. So it's kind of, but at least gives you that right. Okay, so here's one that's not as common. So the Fifth Amendment states that people cannot be held responsible for criminal actions unless the court of the land declares them responsible. So that's where it comes in, innocent until proven guilty, right? Okay, it provides people with the right to not testify against themselves in a trial. Okay, so you don't have to like go and testify against yourself, and prevents them from being tried repeatedly for the same crime. So that's called double jeopardy. So you cannot be charged for the same crime twice. You may have heard the phrase, I plead the Fifth, which refers to this amendment. This means I am exercising my Fifth Amendment rights and will not admit guilt during this trial. So the Fifth Amendment also serves as an important function in the process of what we call due process, right? So due process is being able to go through the actions to make sure you've done everything to prove that somebody did it or that they didn't do it, right? So it needs to be have due process. Another amendment that you'll need to know while doing your state is the Sixth Amendment, okay? In the past, it was uncommon for individuals to be arrested and kept in jail for extremely long periods of time, and in many cases, they weren't fully aware of the charges against them. Okay, this is where, for example, like your Miranda rights, if you've ever heard of Miranda rights. So if you watch a show, it's like, oh, we got to read him his rights, basically telling them, what their rights are, and they have to be charged basically for a certain crime. Okay. The founding fathers felt that this was unfair and unjust. So they established the Sixth Amendment, which created a right to prompt trial, including the right for the accused to confront one of those being charged against them. So it can't be like hearsay, but people have to come in and basically say that they of who like said something against them or is kind of proving that. Okay, here's another one you'll need to know for your quiz. In the past, people were arrested and kept in jail for long periods of time, many because they could not pay their fines. Governing bodies imposed on them. The authors of the U.S. Constitution felt this was unfair as well, so they created the Eighth Amendment. What it does is it's designed to ensure that people were not punished in a manner that was too severe for the crime they committed. For example, if you stole an apple, they're not going to go in and, like today, if you stole an apple, they'd probably maybe make you pay for it or give you a slap on the wrist. But, back in the day, they could have sentencing for all that. So legislatures have actually made like minimum sentencing. So you can sentence for so long, but there's also maximum sentencing, right? So you can't go up and beyond a certain thing for a certain type of crime, right? So all of these just protect us. Okay. The Bill of Rights. So the Ninth Amendment, okay, is basically, it's kind of this generic one, right? It's kind of a joke almost, right? It just basically says that the number of citizens or rights that people are entitled to are basically go on forever, okay? And any other rights that are not written here are just basically given to them. So, in other words, the rights might be developed over the time. The Ninth Amendment was designed to protect rights not found specifically in the Bill of Rights. So, basically saying if you can't do it, if it's not written that you can't do it, then you can do it. So they're just very weary of government and stuff. Okay, so here's something that has been brought up a lot, especially in recent political climate, that kind of stuff, is basically censorship. Okay, and what it is. So I'll just kind of read this a little bit. Censorship and the press. Nothing is more important to Americans than the right to say what they are thinking, be it in their own words, songs, or writings. To be sanctioned placed on those expressions is known as censorship. No group of people in the United States resists censorship more than the media or press. The First Amendment guarantees the right of free press, and the members of the press see any restrictions on what they created as an attempt to control the press. In today's society, the term press or media have come to include works that are published on the internet. In addition, in the traditional printed articles or news coverage, the freedom of press covers weblogs, websites, and other various e-publications. More traditional publications such as newspapers, television broadcasts, newspapers, and also covered. High school publications are covered by freedom of press. Okay, so we go back to Justin's situation, the scenario in the front. They didn't have the right to be able to pull what he did, right? But provided they do not cause a disturbance to the inherent purpose of school, which is educate of pupils, right? So it really depends on what was on the publication. So you guys were both right when we had all were right when we kind of did that, because it depends on what was going on. But this is something that has come up quite a bit. So for example, we look at the Russian-Ukraine war that's going on right now. And one of the first things that Vladimir Putin did, who is the leader of Russia, is he cut down communications from his people, and he wouldn't let them post things. And all they do is they have one media source that they get all their information from, and it's fed to them by the government exactly what the narrative of the government is. And so that's censorship. They're censoring the people from being able to express themselves, to be able to say they don't like the war, and if they don't like the war, they're actually, taking them to prison and stuff. So this is something that's very important, to be able to share ideas and thoughts in a way that's good and appropriate. So that is the lesson on the Bill of Rights. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll stay after. But remember, if you go into here, go to Lesson 2 assignment, and then you have this quiz right here, 10 questions, all about the Bill of Rights of what we went over. So, as it said, once again, if you have any questions, stay after. I'll stop the recording. But if you don't have anything else, you're good to go. So I appreciate everybody coming.